all the unique characters,
I do let him bang. Yeah, I'm saying? Like, yeah, I'm a legend, man. I'm building my legacy.
all the stories and perspectives featured weekly.
I wasn't fully committed to that choke, and I kind of sunk into it, started squeezing tighter, and I kind of heard him gurgle a little bit. I was like, oh.
And all the combat sports you could ask for in the best state in the U.S.
Like I said, Ohio versus the world. It's going to happen for sure. Watch out.
It'll be cool, man. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to show them why the Ohio MMA scene is, in my opinion, one of the best MMA scenes in the country.
This is Forged in OH.
I-O.
OH.
I-O.
OH.
Ayo!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 75 of Forged in Ohio. My name is Jake Murren, and I'm the host of the podcast. I always enjoy welcoming fighters onto the show for the second time, and of all the fighters representing Ronin Training Center that have joined the show, this fighter was the very first to come on Forged in Ohio from that gym. It was episode 9, which was released all the way back on December 26th, 2022. So you could say this was long overdue, and he's also coming off a co-main event win at Cage Thunder 26. It's Kobe Yellow Mamba Woodall. Thanks for coming back on the show, Kobe, and welcome back to Forged in Ohio.
Happy to be back, Jake.
Yeah, of course, happy to have you on the show. We'll actually get to that co-main event fight at Cage Thunder 26 a little later on. I wanted to start in chronological order from the last time you were on the show and the start of your pro career. You debuted almost a year ago on May 5th. I encourage people to check out the fight because it was a brawl while it lasted. Is that the type of fight you were hoping for in your pro debut?
Not really. I mean, it was cool because how it ended and everything. Went and got the job done. But yeah, just having the nerves of first pro fight, I think, kind of takes over a little bit. But a win's a win, so I'll go with that.
Yeah, there were moments in the first minute or two of the first round where I felt like you were on the verge of a finish, and moments where I felt like you were taking some damage too. How were you feeling in the cage after weathering that early storm from both sides?
It was cool. After the first burst, I was like, okay, that's the best he's got. So we can go off of that and just get the job done.
When do you think the nerves of the pro debut went away for you? Was it when you entered the cage, or did it take that early flurry of strikes for you to actually calm down, settle in, and know that you could beat this guy?
Every fight's like that. Like the first 30 seconds is just an adrenaline rush right off the bat, and it seems like with every fight that kind of goes away. But anytime you get in that cage, the first thing, at least now, later on, hopefully it slows down. I know at first, it's always like, okay, here we go. Just like if you get in a fight anywhere else, you're like, oh, this is happening. All right.
I'm also assuming it's not a coincidence that in your first fight where you were legally allowed to throw elbows, that's how you ended up winning the fight.
Oh, yeah, that opens everything up. Just have that extra weapon to use. It's just like, okay, there's so many more angles I can attack from. I don't have to give more space. I can just drop an elbow right in wherever.
You wrote on social media after the debut that you finally achieved a childhood dream of becoming a pro athlete. Just how much did that pro debut win mean to you?
Oh, man. Yeah, growing up, you're always watching sports, I wasn't blessed enough to be tall enough to be good at basketball. Then, football, it was a flame that kind of came and went. And then you try your hands at everything else, and, fighting comes along. You're like, oh, okay, I'm okay at this. Looking back then, I was like, oh, I'm good at this. But now I'm looking back, I'm like, oh, I was okay enough. But, being a pro athlete is something that not everyone can do, or not everyone gets a chance to do. So when you finally get a chance to do it, and you get almost paid for having fun, it's unreal.
I know you played in several sports growing up and didn't really have a true background in combat sports from the last time we talked. When you were a kid and dreaming of being a pro athlete, did you ever dream of that taking place in a cage as a pro MMA fighter?
Not at all. Not at first, man. Out of anything, I think I dreamt the most of being a pro wrestler, and football was just more of a path. It's there for everyone. But then as it grew in popularity, I think it kind of came around a little bit more. Everybody feels like they can do something. Feels like they can fight, or at least they feel like they're able to. So doing that, it's just like, no, I guess to answer your question, no, I didn't at first. But then as I got older, it was like it could happen, and then it did.
Were there a lot of emotions after that pro debut, considering it was the chance for you to become that pro athlete, and then of course the win itself, an impressive win, going 1-0?
At first, I think it was more relief, more than anything. That was the biggest emotion. It was like, oh, okay, we're here. We're finally doing it.
I remember you talking about developing your striking from the last time we talked. How far has your games come since then? It was before your last amateur fight, and of course, you're now 2-1 as a pro mixed martial artist.
I think it's came leaps and bounds, just being with the guys I'm with and just really locking in on it, doing a lot of studying. Now there's a lot of instructionals out that's just really helpful. I haven't really had a chance to show it necessarily, just matchup wise. That last amateur fight, the matchup didn't allow it. This last one, I mean, if I would have stand and just traded with Jamar, I don't know. Like he's a boxer, man, So after I got inside, it's like, well, I'm gonna stay here, But when it comes to strategies and just being able to showcase your skills, sometimes it doesn't work out. Some people will see it as some people that don't really know what's going on may call it just hugging, but for the most part, hopefully I get a chance to show that development.
What do you think has maybe limited you from being able to show that in your fights? Is it just the matchup, or is it something internally that might not be translating, I guess, into the cage?
That was a big part of this last fight was just, just like I was saying, the first 30 seconds, it's a rush, then you find yourself in angles and locations in the cage where you're like, okay, this isn't ideal right now, or you don't feel as comfortable. And then when you're learning your striking, you're developing your striking and you use that stuff in sparring, over time, your teammates figure it out. So when you're sparring, you'll get caught in certain spots where in the actual cage, it's just like, oh, I can do this here because he doesn't know it's coming, unlike all 6 of my teammates that know all my moves, So I think that's the biggest thing, is just getting confidence and being comfortable in the cage for an actual fight versus using your techniques in sparring.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I don't think I've ever heard of a fighter, sparring with their teammates and things not going well because they're so familiar with that sparring partner, and then that not translating into the cage because you're expecting them to be familiar with it. I think that's an interesting angle into the fight game. So going back to your debut, there were about 50 days separating your debut from your second pro fight. I'm not surprised by that, knowing you and knowing that you like to stay active, but why'd you decide to fight again so quickly?
Riding that high off the first win, and you're like, oh, okay. I feel good, didn't take much damage. But like I said, these weight cuts, they take a toll. So I just have to get that under control. And it was a bad choice, to be honest. 50 days, not a good move. I don't know if I'll do that again as quick unless we get a system down and really figure it out.
In hindsight, do you regret the decision going back-to-back fights so quick to start your pro career?
100%, man. Anytime you get that loss on your belt, you're like, well, lesson learned,
Yeah, talking to Kobe Mamba Woodall here on Forged in Ohio. What sticks out when you think about that second fight and the submission loss that you suffered there in the third round?
Really, no reason to travel that far for early in the pro career. I think that was a big part of it. That and you find when you know you're losing and you hit a spot of desperation, it's just like, okay, well, it can't get worse than this. So everything from here should go up.
What do you think you learned most from that loss?
First time being really far away. I think it was a little bit of really far away from home. It was a little strange just going into a completely new atmosphere. I've had a couple fights at home here in Ohio where it's just like in Columbus especially, where it was like, okay, I know I don't have the crowd, but at least I'm home. Then traveling on the road against their main guy, you're like, okay, cool. At least that's under my belt. I'd say the biggest thing I learned from it was just how to handle the adversity of all that. Like just traveling, not having that advantage of being home. Any little thing it can go wrong, like with that quick turnaround, the weight cut was even a bigger issue. Definitely not agreeing to any more hydration clauses because that drains you too. I was like, whew. And afterwards, I was like, yeah, we probably shouldn't have done that. And I was like, yeah, probably shouldn't have. So that's definitely out of the books now too.
When it comes to fighting far away from home like that, does it just make you almost uncomfortable? Is that the right word? And maybe adds to the stress and anxiety that you're already feeling ahead of the walk to the cage?
It's definitely uncomfortable. But I think it really hits it on the head where it's more exhausting because you're already preparing. It's at the end of camp, and now I have to drive, 6 hours to a fight as I'm still cutting weight. That definitely adds to it.
So your second pro fight was last June, and I believe you broke your arm in September. How did you suffer that injury, and how severe was the fracture itself?
So it was just it was on my birthday, man. I'm just like, I went in the spar. I think that's a new superstition I have. I don't think I'm gonna train on my birthday anymore. I think I'm just gonna take that day off. Yeah, we were just sparring. It was the last round. It's always the last round of the day. Last, I don't know, minute of the last round, just a scramble. I planted my hand. Elbow was down, so it wasn't like a post break. It was just, my hand was down. I got twisted on I don't even know what it was. At first, I thought I dislocated my elbow, and I got up and I was like, okay, I can move my elbow. That's good. And then I realized I couldn't turn my hand anymore. And then I was like, I'm good. I just felt pain. Got out of the cage. So still can't move my hand. All right, it'll take a second. Had my teammate take my gloves off, and then still couldn't move my arm. So he just went to the hospital. Got the X-rays, and it was a pretty bad displacement fracture of my radius. Yeah, I had to think. I was like, okay, radius. But yeah, it was just broke bad. It was just displaced by about a half an inch. So we're like, oh yeah, we're gonna have surgery on it. Had that taken care of. Had a plate put in my arm. Got to take that in account on the weight cuts now. But yeah, it was a weird thing. I think I had to play a lot in with this last fight too. It was just like, okay, we're finally getting back in here because I like to be active. Maybe not 50 days back to back active, but within 2-3 months, I like to keep it going. I like to be in season, so to say, like to quote Conor McGregor with that. But it was a pretty bad break.
Yeah, so since you like to be in that active competition cycle, how hard was it for you to be out with the arm injury?
It was weird because you get so used to training often, and then not just training, but also just working out, having your mindset set on to certain things, and then you're just forced to be at home to heal forever, And I don't think, I don't know, maybe a week after the surgery, I was already in the gym just trying to use everything else that I could. But it was also, to be honest with you, that long break, it was a good mental reset. Because you get so bogged down with life and training, and you kind of get lost in the shuffle of things. And then when all that gets ripped away from you, it's almost like a gift from God at that point. It's like, okay, probably the worst way possible that it could happen, but I kind of needed the break, I think, mentally.
Yeah, so one of my favorite quotes from the first time you joined me on the show was some fighters are willing to go out in the cage and die for it, when in reality they should be willing to go out there and kill for it. With that being said, and almost the mental break in a good way from the injury, was it difficult to have that same killer mentality following the injury upon return?
Not for me, because you always want that finish. You always want to hunt for the finish. even if it does get you exhausted early on, or if it, it takes a little bit more effort. But you always want to go for that finish. You always want to go for the kill. I think it's the funnest part of fighting is that you're going for that finish. You're not just going out there and playing tag. It's not point karate. But no, I don't think it affected me in that way. No.
Being a Ronin fighter, was it also easier to get through it by living vicariously through some of the guys around you who were competing and being able to focus on their fights a bit more?
Yeah, man. Ronin, it's good. I got some good friends, and teammates, good coaches, man. They help you get through a lot. Everybody, you always have mentors that have been through stuff. Teammates that are always going through stuff. It still keeps you connected because I was still cornering. Even now I'm cornering. Mark. I'm not sure if I'm all corner Max or not because I know he's got some other coach. He's got his boxing coach and stuff. But just being there for your teammates when they're there, when they are there for you. It is a good outlet.
So you fought only 10 months after suffering the injury. Was that the estimated timetable for a return when you were first injured, or was the comeback maybe faster than expected?
I had a really good surgeon, man. He did a good job. The scarring went away real quick. I mean, the scar's still there, but the healing process and the stitches and everything, they all healed up real quick. I'd probably say it was probably around the right time. 10 months was probably a good time just to get everything right. Just to get the body moving right. I think that's the biggest thing. Is just remembering where you were before. Because before the break, I felt really confident in my striking, and then after the break, it was like, oh no, I have to learn how to punch with my right hand again. And I'm right-handed. And now I don't have it. So it was a big thing to have to relearn.
Yeah, in terms of recovering from the injury, was there some hesitancy in any way when it came to throwing strikes with the arm, trying to not make it any worse or re-aggravate the area?
Once it was healed, there wasn't really much hesitancy as in throwing it. But I knew when I missed, like throwing straights, and you like just throwing straights on the bag, and if you feel confident in throwing on the bag, I'm going to hit it. And then sparring, it's like, oh, if I miss, my elbow is going to hurt because all the pain would shoot right to my elbow because the joints were kind of locked up, and over time that went away. You learn some certain movements and stuff to kind of help with the rehab process. So, going into the fight, it wasn't as bad. Like now it's miles from what it was. But hesitancy at first, just from the pain of throwing it, not as much as of worrying about it re-breaking. It was just physical blocks, not as much mental blocks.
So when you're out there and you mentioned the plate put in your arm, how much of a consideration is that when you do have to cut weight? Is it actually that much?
So what I missed by is probably about the weight of what the plate weighs. So that was a little sucky. But shouldn't be a problem going forward. I'm definitely planning for it more so now.
Talking to Kobe Yellow Mamba Woodall here on Forged in Ohio. Let's talk about your win at Cage Thunder 26. Going into the fight, did you feel like you almost had something to prove coming off the loss and the injury to reestablish yourself in this Ohio MMA scene?
Yeah, it's really weird because everyone's got a real short memory. I mean, it wasn't. Well, now we talk about our first podcast. Back then, I was number one in the state, not just number one in the state, but number one in the Midwest. It's like people forget about that. People have real short memories, and it wasn't like I got there from just waiting people out and people aging out. It was like I won a tournament, got there, proved myself. Had people avoid me for a year, had to travel to fight, came back after a long layoff, lost my amateur fight, lost the last amateur fight, went pro, riding high, fought too soon, lost, and that's everybody's last memory. He's like, hey, guys, I'm still me. I'm still here. We're still gonna get this. We're still gonna get the job done. It's a long journey. And I feel like, especially now, it's not cool to lose, but I feel like all the best fighters eventually lose. I mean, yeah, you got Khabib, but that's it. Yeah, you got Mayweather, but that's it. There's no one else that does that. George St. Pierre lost. John Jones lost. But yeah, man, you really do get a new chip on your shoulder. It's a different one. It's not as much of a I'm angry chip on your shoulder. It's more like I just feel slightly disrespected at times. And you got to go out there and just remind everybody who you are. Improve it again. That's fine. We'll keep doing it.
Yeah, the sport really is what have you done for me lately, and sometimes that can come and affect the emotions of fighters at times. With that chip on your shoulder, do you think you did prove that, hey, I am back with a performance at Cage Thunder 26?
Yeah, with the unanimous decision, I want the finish, but man, Jamar's tough. He's a tough dude. It's good to get the win under the belt. The way I got done, I feel like I could have did better. I know some of my teammates know I could do better. But I'm happy with it. It's still a win.
I know the weight cut wasn't easy. You talked about it a little bit. You made it down to 156.5. Can you walk me through what that fight week was like for you?
I was feeling good, man. I took it got it down to a science. And that's the thing about science. It's just all theory. So it's just, you got to try it, see what happens. I got some new guys on my team. I need to get a nutritionist still, but supplementing wise, strength and conditioning wise, tuned everything in, got the diet down, doing a lot more cardio. Like that quick turnaround, I was a little tubby because I didn't have enough time. I didn't realize I needed that much time. This last one, I felt a lot better with my physical body. That itself is a confidence too. You get that weight cut. You just look in the mirror. You're like, oh, okay, I look the part. That's a little confidence boost. But yeah.
Was the game plan coming in to constantly apply pressure the way you did and get in those clinch positions along the cage, where I'm assuming you kind of felt that strength advantage in those positions?
The game plan was really to get inside his range. It wasn't necessarily to clinch and get a hold of him like I did. It's difficult fighting. It's a matchup issue because it always is. Because I'm not shorter. He's tall. I don't know if he's listed at 6 foot, but I felt like he was 6'3". He's a tall dude. So he's just just get inside of his range. I know if I got caught at the length of his range, I'd be in trouble. That's where all the power is, and that's what he's gonna get me. So to get inside, I really want to get inside and strike with him, really, but it's harder with those lengthier guys, especially now. They know not to come forward as they strike. They come forward as they strike. They're coming into takedowns. They're coming into counters. If they just hold their ground, that's their best bet. So I know once I got inside, I'd have to stay there.
Could you tell that you were stronger along the fence, and even when you landed a few takedowns, that you were just physically stronger than Jamar was?
Yeah. I feel like I'm physically stronger than a lot of guys at 55. I kind of take pride on that, and I just like lifting weights, and it's kind of a detriment when it comes to the weight cut. So we're figuring that out as well. But and all respect to Jamar, man, he's a tough dude. His length caused issues not just on the striking end, but also on the grappling end. Someone gets a knee shield in there, and it's a foot longer than what you're used to. You're like, oh, I can't pass this guard as effectively as I usually can. And he's real experienced, and he knew that. Like you look at his fights, and I feel like a lot of people didn't give him the respect that I was going to give him in the grappling aspect of things. Because, going back to his first pro fight, he went up a weight class on short notice. And people would look at that and be like, oh, you got this, you got that, you got this. And that's cool and all. We know there's advantages, we know there's disadvantages, but strength-wise, yeah, I'm okay with it. Like everybody, I'll pick up anybody. I don't care.
It was your first time going the distance as a pro fighter with 5-minute rounds. How do you think your cardio held up considering the pressure you were applying and the pace that you set from the very first round?
Cardio was cool. So I really kicked it up in training camp, just a lot of longer duration, lower intensity cardio, just to build up that base even more. And at the pace we were fighting, I think that kept it under control as well.
What was some of the advice you received from your corner between rounds 1 and 2? Was it just to keep closing that distance, like you said, between you and Jamar Moore?
No, man, they wanted me to do what we've been training, and then at that point it was just like, I'm trying, but it's hard because he's not moving forward as much. And then, having Max Metzer and Mark Antonelli over in the corners, they know everything I do. They know what I'm capable of. Josh is there all the time too, of course. He's our mad scientist, but those guys in the corner, I could, at points in the fight, you'll even see that anytime I do back up, it's backing up to my corner so I can hear them. Because being there, it was like everybody's Jamar's guys. Like the whole crowd was for him. And that's a testament to him. But I just want to make sure I could hear my coaching. That was a big part of it, especially when the fatigue in the third round, because everybody gets a little tired. It's a long fight. So in the third round especially, you could, if you go back and hear it, you can just hear him say, just keep moving. Because once you start slowing down, it feels like your feet are in cement.
Did anything that Jamar had to offer in the fight surprise you or catch you off guard at all?
And he was ready for those kicks. he was getting around. I was lucky he only got one really good check. But for the most part, he was half checking everything. So I was like, all right, we're doing enough damage. I can keep throwing this. It's not hurting me too bad. And he had one good check. And if I bump my shin in anything, even now, it still stings a little. But yeah, he was ready for that. He was ready for all the low kicks. So I had to start trying to set him up a little bit better. I threw one good body kick, and I'm only half proud of it because I fell right after I kicked him. Because he went for another low kick check, and then when he did that, it kind of yanked my leg up from out under me with that canvas. It's always weird too, because when you're fighting canvas cages, they're a little slick in comparison to like the plastic ones if they're not sweaty. But he was ready for that. His grappling, I can tell what they did because it was kind of similar to the same thing I did in my last amateur fight. Was okay, if this guy's pressuring against the cage going for the takedown, whizzer down. And that's a great move. The only problem is it kind of gets us both into a stalemate, and we're just stuck on the cage. Because then I'm trying to get my arm back out so I can break and strike. He's holding on to it, So like, there's little intricacies that people don't know, or if they haven't fought long enough in their amateur career, they don't realize that. They just see me holding him onto the cage. In reality, sometimes he's holding me and I'm trying to break. It's just a battle of position, and he was ready for it. Like he was an experienced guy.
How happy are you overall with the performance and the body of work that you showed in the return?
Overall, I'm happy that I came back and got the win. Not happy I didn't get the finish. We'll just leave it at that.
Looking back on it, like watching the fight back on YouTube and checking everything out, all the aspects of the fight, do you wish you would have done anything different in those 15 minutes?
Yeah, just the comfortability, or just being comfortable in my striking. Because in the second and third, I started landing things that I should have been landing in the first. But once you get inside and you pick somebody up, you just want to stick on that. You're like, okay, cool, we'll just keep doing this, and maybe we can get the finish quick. But just being comfortable in my striking earlier, and I think it's going to come with experience. Even though we're a pro now, that was my 10th fight, which Mark told me that we both have 10 fights now. I'm like, that's crazy. I feel old now. But after 10 fights, you think that you have a lot figured out. And every day, every fight, especially, you learn the most from fights. You just realize there's more that you can learn. And in this case, with that fight, it was just being more comfortable in my striking early.
How many fights do you feel like you've had?
I didn't think I was 10. I didn't think it was 10 fights. I don't know. At this point, because each fight's been different. You got a lot of first round finishes, a lot of early stop, or not early stop, just the early finishes in the fights here and there. Then you got the long ones, and then the last couple ones you take your last couple pro fights, last few fights here and there you take a few shots. Wear and tear builds up, training builds up, but overall I feel pretty good. I don't know if I could put a number on how many fights I feel like I've been in though.
So that fight was on April 6th. How's the body and your overall health a few weeks removed?
I'm good now. It took me a little bit. Just the weight cut always drains you, man. It's not fun, but figuring that out. The thing that a lot of people don't realize, it really messes up your gut biome because you're so drained out. You're not eating for a week. When you dehydrate yourself, all that, you have to reactivate your gut, reactivate your stomach to even process food, and you just try to hammer in food and liquids right after. And your body accepts it for a day, but then once the stress of the fight's gone, all that stress and recovery hits you right away. But yeah, we're back on the horse. We're ready to go again.
Yeah, so have you thought about when you'd like to get back in there?
Late June, July. I think that's where I'm looking at. I think it's a good time for me. Just to first, like we got these last couple weeks of just recovery out of the way, and we got to get the gears going again. Just get ready for it.
I know it's kind of hard to say without an opponent or even a date, but I know you're always looking for a finish. You mentioned it. 6 of your 8 wins across your amateur and pro career have come inside the distance. Will you be trying to get back to those finishing ways when you make your next walk to the cage?
100%, man. That's the thing. You want to be lethal out there. You can't be out there just. It's not some people do it. There's a lot of guys that go a long time, just winning fights off of just getting on top of guys or just, laying and praying. It's an effective way to win the sport. But yeah, overall, you always want to get the finish. That's what everybody remembers. That's what gets people paid. That's what gets on the posters. So yeah, you always want to get that knockout.
Last one for you, man. What can we expect out of Kobe Woodall throughout the rest of 2024?
2024, man, you expect another win at least one more win. It's a good year, in comparison to last year. Everything's going all right. So we'll keep this thing moving.
All right, man. I'm looking forward to it. Before we wrap up, just anything you want to shout out in terms of social media handles, sponsorships, anything like that. The floor is yours.
Oh yeah, Instagram, Kobe Woodall. You just put in Kobe, it'll come up. Kobe Woodall, it'll come up pretty quick. I don't think there's anybody else with that name. So, other than that, it's really all I got going on. I got a few teammates fighting here soon. Mark making his pro debut, Max making his pro debut, Asher Shock and Rock doing his thing. We got a lot of other guys coming up. Other than that, nah, man, it's all good.
Yeah. By the way, how nice is it to see Max Metzger back in action after being out for so long with that Bellator contract that was kind of complicated? How nice is it to see him with a fight booked in camp, and how excited are you to see him back in there in the cage?
I'm excited, man. It's overdue. And seeing that guy work, he makes me better. I hope I do the same for him. And it's just, he's one of my best friends. So I'm excited for him.
As am I. Thanks again, Kobe, for coming back on the show. I was grateful when you joined me nearly 2 years ago for episode 9, and now look at us here for episode 75 of Forged in Ohio. You might remember how I like to end these chats on the show. It's with the OHIO chant. So, OH.
IO.
Thanks, Kobe. Congrats on your latest win. I was happy to see you back in there, and I can't wait to see what you do next, man.
Me too, man. And hopefully we don't go 2 more years. I'll be happy to be back on here sooner than that.
Absolutely, man. You're back anytime. You're welcome back anytime.
Thank you, man.
That was Kobe Yellow Mamba Woodall, the 2-1 pro mixed martial artist who is coming off a co-main event win over Jamar Moore at Cage Thunder 26. I love picking the mind of someone like Kobe Woodall. I kind of cringe a little bit when listening back to those early episodes of Forged in Ohio, but I certainly think episode 9 with Kobe was a good one. And you all know that I think highly of Ronin Training Center, and the same applies to their fighters. So I'm excited to cover what the Yellow Mamba does next. If you want more Forged in Ohio content, then check us out at Instagram and Forged in Ohio at Forged in Ohio. We're close to 800 followers on Instagram, so help me reach that milestone. And I do ask that you take your support to the next level by downloading episodes wherever you listen to them, or liking the video and subscribing to the Forged in Ohio YouTube channel. Thanks again for watching or tuning in. I've been your host, Jake Murren, and this was Forged in Ohio.